Hello, I'm Duncan Golostani. Welcome to Lungs Matter, a programme from Respiratory Futures and ITN Business. Respiratory illness became headline news during the pandemic, and the battle continues. With significant pressures being experienced across all four nations, NHS England say that up to half of all hospital beds in England this winter could be occupied by patients with respiratory infections. In this programme, we look at the game-changing technology and innovations that are impacting patient outcomes, as well as how education and prevention can make a real difference. Many patients with chronic respiratory disease will never be cured. However, advancements in respiratory medicine, greater awareness, and an increase in preventative measures are improving outcomes. I'm delighted to say I'm now joined by Paul Walker, the chair of the British Thoracic Society. Welcome, Paul. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Duncan.
Let me start by asking, how is BTS working to raise awareness of respiratory and lung conditions and raise understanding around respiratory disease?
So BTS has been around for 40 years or so, and our mission has always been the same. It's always been to promote better lung health. We do that in lots and lots of different ways, from promoting respiratory medicine and the profile of that, often with partners, to delivering research, taking that research, making it into guidelines to show people what best practice is, putting standards together and helping people measure their own practice against those standards to improve the quality of it. And we envelop the whole thing in a package and programme of education, where we organise conferences, courses, publications, and have a journal to promote best respiratory practice.
Why are respiratory specialists important in improving quality of life?
Improving quality of life, it's about delivering the best care at the right time, and respiratory specialists are a broad group. We are nurses, doctors, physiotherapists, lots of other groups as well. And we know, because we've looked at this, that if you are managed by a respiratory specialist, your lung disease is more likely to be diagnosed, you're more likely to be on the right treatment, you're more likely to have fewer symptoms, and that is better quality of life. Our issue is that to deliver that, you need lots of respiratory professionals, and we just do not have the workforce at the moment. We have shortages across the board. What we need is a strategy to say how we're going to get those workforce individuals in a few years' time, and we can't magic them out of thin air, but we need a strategy to deliver that.
Why is prevention so important?
I think all of us would love to be redundant. We'd love people not to have lung disease, and anything that we can do to stop it occurring, or actually prevention is a lot also about stopping the progression of lung disease. Two key areas for us, tobacco control. We absolutely need a strategy to eliminate cigarette smoking that would eliminate so much of our workload in the future and make so many more people healthy. And I think what is absolutely clear over the last 10 or 20 years, our understanding of air pollution has absolutely transformed, and it's front and centre of us now realising the impact it has on lung disease. And so having strategies to deal with that are also really vital.
What's the future like for respiratory medicine, and what do you hope to achieve?
It's an interesting time to be answering that question. I think life's grim for a lot of people at the moment. There's a lot of challenges out there, and it's easy to think that there's just a conveyor belt of bad news on a daily basis. To be honest, I look back at 25 years ago. That's when I started training as a chest specialist. And if I look at what we've achieved in the last 25 years, that says to me that those same respiratory specialists are going to do the same over the next 25 years. And that's why, the future is bright. I would want to highlight one thing, though, and that is health inequalities, because that's an area that we really haven't made any difference to over the last 25 years. Outcomes and the differences between health outcomes have not changed. I work in one of the most deprived areas of the country, and the people I look after, they're more likely to have lung disease. If they have lung disease, they're less likely to be diagnosed, less likely to be on the right treatment. And to be frank, they're more likely to die years and years earlier than people from different areas. I feel ashamed of that, and I think we should all feel ashamed of that. And along with a lot of other healthcare organisations, we're working at the moment to try and get a proper health inequality strategy so that we narrow those differences and address that over the next decade or more.
Such a valuable insight for us. Paul, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Coughing, wheezing, trouble breathing. Poor air quality can exacerbate symptoms like these in people living with a lung disease. Exposure to air pollutants can also have longer-term impacts, such as increasing our risk of developing lung disease. While air pollution continues to be a serious environmental and health problem, here's a look at the measures being taken to address it. Air pollution affects every one of us. Breathing in toxic particles has a variety of negative health impacts, and road traffic is one of the highest sources of harmful emissions. In the UK, pollution kills around 30,000 people each year. It is, experts say, a public health crisis, with unborn babies, newborns and young children especially at risk.
Young people are particularly vulnerable to the adverse effects of air pollution because they're developing, and we know that air pollution suppresses the development of the lungs, for example, but even early on in conception, in the womb, air pollution is moving into the fetus and causing growth effects even at that point.
There is nothing equal about the effects of air pollution. Close to busy roads, levels of nitrogen dioxide are on average 24% higher. And those living close to main roads are more likely to be from poorer and ethnic minority backgrounds. It means those already vulnerable to health inequalities suffer the most.
Air pollution affects all of us, it affects every organ of everybody, but that impact and the exposure affect different communities differently. So in particular, those who are poorer are more likely to live, learn and work in places with higher outdoor air pollution. They're more likely to have chronic medical conditions, so they're more vulnerable. And they're also more likely to live in housing, that means they're at higher exposure to indoor air pollution as well.
Whether poor or wealthy, at home or outside, the British Thoracic Society believes everyone has the right to breathe clean air. And just as pollution has an impact on all of us, we can all have an impact on air quality. Individually, what can we all do to help cut air pollution?
So we can make changes to our daily lives to reduce pollutant emissions. Using our cars less, changing those shorter car trips to walking and cycling, changing the time of day in which we travel as well, and thinking about the routes we take. So staying away from those main pollutant hotspots such as roadside or busy transport environments.
There are government-backed initiatives to help us make changes. For example, grants for e-bikes, clean air zones and education campaigns. And local authorities have a statutory role in assessing and improving air quality. However, many believe substantial improvements will only really come with action at a government policy level.
To date, we've really focused on exhaust emissions.
Dr Bartington is also one of the UKRI's regional clean air champions, a team of people helping to bridge the gap between research and action.
As a clean air champion, we bring together researchers, so across atmospheric science, physical sciences, life sciences, social sciences, and develop practical solutions to air quality issues. So we want to ensure that these really diverse research communities then get connected to the public, to policymakers, to businesses, and really generate solutions that are understandable, usable, and ultimately useful to improve people's lives and address the air quality challenge.
Local actions can be very effective, but what we really need is much bolder action at national level. We need a Clean Air Act, we need the government to really put in some legal mandates to reduce air pollution, and that's the only way that we'll see an impact on health inequalities.
Respiratory diseases such as asthma and COPD are a serious burden to both individuals and healthcare systems globally, and recent studies show people in deprived areas are more likely to die from these conditions. Healthcare company Sanofi is seeking to challenge health inequalities and reduce risk in respiratory diseases, improving the lives of patients through collaboration with patient association groups, healthcare professionals and regulators.
So asthma has been a completely debilitating condition that's stolen a number of years of my life.
Gemma Kerfoot was diagnosed with asthma fairly late in life, at 29. That was a decade ago. Over the years, she was prescribed numerous medications, including inhalers and steroids. Nothing helped to alleviate her symptoms in the long term.
It's taken over a lot of my headspace. Physically, I have been very poorly with it, so constantly wheezing, coughing, feeling headachy, absolutely exhausted, not sleeping. Mentally, it absolutely made me depressed. Socially, I avoided a lot of situations. All walks of my life, it affected me. And a preventer inhaler.
Gemma has been invited to travel from her home in Manchester to share experiences of her particularly severe condition with both a medical expert and healthcare company Sanofi to open up a different type of conversation. Being given higher and higher doses of steroids over the years dramatically impacted Gemma's appearance and her life.
How did that discussion with your GP go?
So it's quite daunting, really, to think about having to be on steroids for long term. It really made me feel like there was no other way around things to help, that it would be steroids forever, and obviously the side effects aren't fantastic, so it was very worrying.
How do you identify those, both in a primary and secondary care setting, those with uncontrolled asthma?
So classically, the patients will present with symptoms of poorly controlled asthma, and they will notice an increase in use of their inhalers, and they may ultimately require oral steroids to control their symptoms. Any patient that's requiring frequent short courses of steroids or maintenance steroids really needs to be referred on to specialist asthma services.
Sanofi is working with healthcare professionals to address the huge disparity in the diagnosis and treatment of immunological conditions such as asthma. People in disadvantaged areas are 1.5 times more likely to die from asthma than those in other parts of the country. And there's a higher prescribing of steroids for asthma and COPD in the most deprived GP practice areas compared to the least. Sam has been looking after patients with severe asthma for much of her 30-year career.
How important is it that we address this huge disparity?
So we need to address it because patients may have symptoms that are poorly controlled, and they should have equal access to care wherever they are. So there is real inequality for these people. So actually ensuring that somebody that's in a deprived area has access and is actually assessed appropriately for interventions that will actually make a huge difference to their quality of life is really important, regardless of where they live.
Sanofi's stated purpose is chasing the miracles of science to improve people's lives. To achieve this, the company believes in close collaboration with patient groups and healthcare professionals to assist in finding treatments and solutions.
Collaboration is so important because once we've developed innovative medicines that can transform people's lives, we need to understand how patients can get the quickest best access to those medicines. So bringing key stakeholders together to identify the needs that can drive inequalities in access to best care, and then finding solutions that we can implement together is paramount.
Sanofi's ultimate goal with respiratory conditions is to reduce risk and improve outcomes through equal access to the right care at the right time for everyone in need. 8 years into her asthma journey, Gemma was referred to a respiratory team. After various medical tests, she was relieved to finally have a diagnosis: severe asthma. Having the right diagnosis and medication enabled her to be in greater control of her condition.
It's made a huge impact, just having a team of specialists who've been working so hard to look after me and get me on the right path and the right medication. It's just made a complete turnaround to my life. I'm able to put that to the back of my mind and continue with my life and look forward to things that I enjoy without having to worry about my asthma.
Finding innovative ways to improve disease detection and treatment response time can have a profound effect on patient outcomes. Annalise AI are working with NHS clinicians and hospitals to implement their AI tool for medical imaging. It assists radiologists to detect over 100 pathologies, becoming a second set of digital eyes.
More than 4,000 people in Scotland die from lung cancer every year. With increasing demand on medical imaging and capacity constraints, some hospitals are turning to emerging technology for help.
Lung cancer has got very poor survival rates, so it's about 15% are still alive for people who've been diagnosed with lung cancer 5 years later, versus 85% of people with breast cancer. One of the reasons for that is we can't identify lung cancer early enough, so it's asymptomatic.
Tested and created with the input of world-leading radiologists, Annalise Enterprise is a comprehensive artificial intelligence software that analyses chest x-rays for over 100 findings within seconds of being taken, and is an assistive tool for clinicians.
NHS Grampian has been at the forefront of groundbreaking research in the medical science space over the last 6 years, and the Innovation Hub has partnered with Annalise AI. Now that relationship has been welcomed by both doctors, nurses and radiographers right here in Aberdeen.
One of my colleagues was reporting and he initially was saying that the chest x-ray was normal. He came round to me and he says, actually Annalise has flagged that up as a potential mass. I've re-looked at it and now he's re-reported it. Patient had a CT scan 2 days later, which confirmed lung cancer. So literally within 3 days of it going live.
There's a big drive from NHS Scotland, NHS England and elsewhere is to really improve detecting lung cancers early, because the earlier you can detect them, the better the prognosis is. So where Annalise is helping is finding those really early, subtle, small lung cancers or potential lung cancers.
Decision support tools like Annalise are anticipated to help reduce wait times and time to diagnosis for patients.
If we can then flag if there's something that needs further investigation, like a potential lung cancer, whilst they're still in the hospital, and instead of having to travel back and forth, we can get them onto a CT scanner. And that way your time to actually diagnosis is so much quicker, and you're likely to be picking up these cancers at a much, much earlier stage.
NHS Grampian are the first UK trust or health board to use this AI decision support solution outside the radiology department at the crucial point of care.
It's an extra pair of eyes for us, and that's very welcome on a really busy ward round. I find that you fatigue a little bit less, and even by the end of the ward round you're still performing well because you haven't sort of expended all your energy and your concentration and your stress levels on the first few.
The NHS long-term plan aims to save thousands more lives each year by dramatically improving how they diagnose and treat cancer. The Annalise AI technology can help support the national effort to detect cancer early, and NHS Grampian is leading that path.
Our big challenge really is identifying people who need the quickest help and have the most serious conditions, and it's very difficult for us to do that at the moment. I think products like Annalise AI and other artificial intelligence products will help us prioritise and risk stratify.
The AI flags chest x-rays that have critical findings to help signpost doctors to patients with the most immediate needs.
The comprehensiveness of Annalise means that we can find over 100 findings on a chest x-ray, which means that no matter where it's used, in what clinical setting, it is able to find the relevant things for those patients. And the importance of that is in triaging and prioritisation. So they prioritise the patients that have findings that need immediate attention. And that way we can then, allocate the resources better and improve efficiency, making sure that people get treated when they need to get treated.
For doctors, embracing technology and staying abreast of the latest innovation in medicine are what they think can help patients and the staff at NHS Grampian.
AI is here to stay. I think for a lot of people they're a bit hesitant about it because they see the potential risks associated with it. Is it going to replace me? I would say that's not going to happen. It's here to help and it's here to support.
As a B Corp certified pharmaceutical company, Chiesi recognise the impact that inhaler devices can have on the environment and are addressing this impact through innovation with an approach that doesn't compromise patient care.
Navigating the route to a more sustainable future is not without its challenges for the pharmaceutical industry in areas like gas-propelled inhalers.
Many respiratory conditions require the use of an inhaler. Matching the right inhaler to every patient is key to their health and well-being.
Tom Delahoyd leads the UK arm of Chiesi, a global pharmaceutical company. It's developing an alternative to its gas-propelled inhalers, but patients remain its priority.
We like to think of patients primarily as being people, not just recipients of medicines.
And an estimated 5.4 million people are living with asthma across the UK.
We do believe that for truly sustainable respiratory care, we have to take a holistic approach. We have to ensure that prescribers, healthcare professionals and patients have access to the right inhaler for the right patient, because there's no one inhaler that suits all patients.
And that starts with clinicians.
Whenever we write a prescription, we always focus on the drug, the pharmacology, the molecule. We tend not to think about the device. So I think we need to look at two things. One, do patients actually adhere to the prescription that their healthcare prescriber actually gives them? So that's adherence and compliance. But I'm looking more about engagement. How does a patient actually use an inhaler? So when I see a patient in the clinic, have I instructed them properly on how to use that inhaler device? And actually the data shows that we're not very good as healthcare professionals in teaching our patients.
It also means selecting the type of device appropriate to each and every patient. And according to Asthma and Lung UK, around 1 million people are risking an asthma attack because they're using the wrong inhaler.
Healthcare professionals need to be device detectives. So there are 4 main classes. There's the press and breathe, the meter-dose inhaler, the inhaler which is a powder. We also have a soft mist, slow-moving inhaler, and we also have nebulizers. So we need to have the range of these devices to be able to tailor the right device to the right patient. Asthma and COPD patients vary in their disease state, in their severity. So it's really important that we collectively, government, regulatory bodies, the pharmaceutical industry, academics, clinicians, and the patient voice is very important. We're all integrated in designing the inhalers of the future to be able to actually achieve the patient's goals of better symptom control. It's critically important that patients are not stigmatized for using a meter-dose inhaler. This is not a choice they have. They need this medication for their symptoms, for management of their condition. So it comes back to patient choice, looking after our patients, and the physicians and healthcare professionals having that choice to be able to choose the right device for the patient.
Healthcare professionals, prescribers and patients should not feel guilty for wanting access to the device that is right to treat their condition. I think transparency is absolutely key. Let's be honest, it's almost trendy now to talk about being a sustainable company. People have sustainability in all of their company logos now. It's easy to say those words. We truly believe in action over words. In 2019, we went through a really rigorous assessment where all of our environmental and societal policies and performance levels were assessed, and we were successful in achieving that B Corp certification. The B Corp movement, if you like, is a global movement of people, a global group of people who want to use business as a force for good. Now at Chiesi, we focus on 3 key areas as part of our B Corp status. We focus on people, we focus on patients, and we focus on the planet. We've invested €350 million into the development of an environmentally friendly inhaler. It will reduce the current greenhouse gas impact by around 90% versus current propellant. It'll be completely seamless in terms of the transition for patients. It'll be helpful for the planet, and there'll be no issue then with should we prescribe a PMDI. And our B Corp status is not an award to us. For me, it signifies the beginning of continued development to help patients moving forward.
More and more people are living with respiratory failure and sleep-related breathing disorders. Home healthcare specialists Dolby Vivasol are working with the NHS to take some of the strain from the hospital clinical teams by providing specialist support for the patients in their own home, leading to improved therapy outcomes.
Amanda Whiffin is the Clinical Director at Dalby Vivasol, a leading home healthcare provider that offers in-home patient visits.
Hi! Hey Wendy, it's Amanda.
She's here to meet Wendy, a patient who suffers with obstructive sleep apnea, which is a condition where your breathing stops and starts when you sleep. Amanda's role involves supporting patients to use a CPAP machine from the comfort of their home. CPAP stands for continuous positive airway pressure and is a therapy which enables patients like Wendy to breathe while sleeping.
So Wendy, what I'm here today is to show you the CPAP machine. We really do want to make a difference to the patients. We have a professional team of clinicians and physiologists who really can make that difference. How does that feel? Does it feel comfortable? Good.
Wendy Gilchrist had recently been diagnosed, but since having visits from Dalby Vivasol's qualified clinicians, she has been able to use her device, which has seen her apnea-hypopnea index, also known as AHI, improve dramatically, as it indicates the severity of her condition. Wendy is now optimistic about the future.
I'm looking forward to having a proper night's sleep, not being woken up, not my brain telling me to wake up because I've stopped breathing, and to be able to live a normal life like my niece who was diagnosed 10 years ago, and after 10 years of treatment she's fine. You know, she gets on with her life, and it'd just be nice to be able to sit and watch a TV, go out, take the dogs out, go for a drink, just do anything than sit and sleep.
Not only are Dalby Vivasol providing support to those who are diagnosed with obstructive sleep apnea, but they also provide 24-hour patient access to support lines. This couldn't be more helpful for consultants such as Dr. Michael Oko, who is a sleep apnea specialist and runs his own sleep service in Lincolnshire.
Well, we do know that when we were running clinics historically, you know, face-to-face in the outpatients department, they explain everything to the patient, but you're not sure how much they actually remember by the time they get home. So actually having a home setup, they can do things like know how far the plug is away from your bed. You get time to explain on a one-to-one basis how the device actually works. And this helps everybody, so you get that one-to-one personalised gold standard care at home.
Michael believes that through Dalby Vivasol services, patients have saved time coming in personally to see him to check on their progress, and this also helps to reduce the carbon footprint for the NHS.
It restores people's quality of life back to normal. So one of the most rewarding areas to be in medicine, because you're giving people back their sleep, and sleep is the best medicine.
It's a sentiment shared by Managing Director at Dalby Vivasol, Stephen Cotty, whose team has helped consultants like Michael deliver effective in-home healthcare services.
We receive prescriptions from clinicians like Mike, and he could be asking us to go and do a diagnostic study on a patient, in which case we send the right equipment out to the patient, we do the study, send the information back to him. Or it could be that the patient needs to go on to therapy, in which case we go out and we install the device, get the patient set up nicely and ensure that they're then compliant with their therapy moving forwards. By working closely with the NHS, we can help where it's needed to remove administrative works, and this allows the clinical teams in the NHS to focus on their role, looking after more complex patients.
The company are geared up to ensure that people can be treated at home in a way that leads to successful outcomes in their therapy.
We've got a wonderful team of very committed, very passionate and very caring individuals. And at the moment we're providing services for a number of trusts, but the opportunity is enormous. You know, we know that patients enjoy being treated in their own home, and we're looking forward to rolling this out across the country.
And it certainly has made a difference to patients like Wendy, whose AHI has improved significantly from 99 events per hour to just 1, and who have been given the vital in-home support they need.
For people living with asthma or lung disease, quality of life can be dramatically impacted by external factors such as pollution and healthcare inequalities. However, meaningful benefits can be achieved through individual prevention measures such as exercising and quitting smoking, and through long-term specialist care. I'm joined now by Sarah Woolnough, Chief Executive of Asthma and Lung UK. Sarah, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
How are the cost of living crisis and health inequalities impacting lung health?
The cost of living crisis is having a big impact on lung health. We are hearing from people daily, worried about heating their homes, worried about paying bills. We know that's incredibly important for anyone with a lung condition to keep warm, to keep their home a good temperature. We're also hearing from people who are struggling to pay for prescriptions. And we're particularly worried about anyone who may need to use a medical device at home, such as an oxygen machine, and their ability to pay for the cost of that. So we are urging the government to ensure that vulnerable people with lung conditions are protected over this very difficult period.
Is there enough investment, do you think, to mitigate health inequalities?
Well, we believe that lung health needs much more priority. Lung health and lung disease is the third biggest killer across the UK. And we know that poverty and health inequalities are a key part of that. So you're more likely to get and die from a lung condition if you are living in a more deprived community. And that's for a whole range of reasons: damp housing, poorer air quality, perhaps you're more likely to have smoked and been exposed at work to something that might impact your lung health. So we need much more energy and focus to tackle the underlying causes of lung conditions.
What impact does air pollution have?
Air pollution has a huge impact. So when we talk to people living with asthma, COPD and other lung conditions, many of them, over half of people living with asthma, around half living with COPD, which includes emphysema, tell us that air pollution is a trigger. It can cause flare-ups and exacerbations of their disease. It can leave people hospitalised. So it's a huge issue for people. Unfortunately, the air quality across the UK is not what it should be. Every 2 minutes, a baby is born into dangerously polluted air. And we know that some of the most harmful air pollutants, for example, PM2.5, that the particles are smaller than the width of a human hair by 30 times. They're penetrating deep into the lungs and other organs and the bloodstream. They're causing new lung conditions and exacerbating existing conditions.
How important is good care and treatment?
Well, good care and treatment is the cornerstone of supporting people with lung conditions. But we know not enough people with asthma, with COPD and other lung conditions are getting access to a swift diagnosis and good treatment thereafter. We think there needs to be much more effort, including research, to understand how better to diagnose swiftly and accurately lung conditions and ensure then people are getting access to good treatment and are helped to self-manage their condition.
Should there be more education about lung health? And to that end, what is your charity doing?
Yes, there should be more education about lung health. We need to raise the profile of the lungs and how you look after your lung health in order to prevent lung conditions, but then, of course, to help people if they are diagnosed with a lung condition. As a charity, we have a wealth of health information on our website. We have things like asthma and COPD self-management plans, because people with lung conditions taking responsibility for helping to manage their own health is so critically important. We also have a helpline and support groups. We know that peer support, getting together with other people who may be similarly struggling with a lung condition, can be hugely beneficial to help educate, but also to support people.
Really, such useful information. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
For people with uncontrolled and severe asthma, life can be unpredictable and downright scary. Nouveau Air has launched a comprehensive asthma home monitoring and support service designed to expand clinical capacity for diagnosing, treating and improving outcomes for these high-risk patients. We went to Liverpool to learn more.
If you can't get a breath, which obviously happens a lot, it feels like the end's come. It feels like you're just going to die.
Take a big breath in and blast out as long as you can.
60-year-old Macbeth was one of the 1.3 million people in the UK with uncontrolled asthma. After decades struggling to control his symptoms, he was referred to a hospital in the northwest, which enrolled him in Nouveau Air's asthma service.
Take your big breath in.
For 12 weeks, he was monitored virtually by a Nouveau Air respiratory physiologist to help assess his condition. At home, using his spirometer connected to the Nouveau Air app, Macbeth regularly recorded his lung function, medication use and symptoms, so specialists could pinpoint the correct treatment.
It showed over a long period of time exactly how my breathing was, and that's what I always wanted. So, and then that got me to get these biological injections that's really helping. I would never have had that if I hadn't went on this 12-week assessment to see how I was. Since I've taken it, it's really helped me. It has sort of turned my life around.
The patient data collected by Nouveau Air is delivered to NHS clinicians and enables them to make faster, more informed clinical decisions about diagnosis and treatment. One renowned respiratory specialist told us why Nouveau Air's service is game-changing for asthma sufferers and the NHS.
In the past, we didn't really have the tools to have the kind of longitudinal awareness of what was happening to a patient with asthma. And it's so critical in asthma because asthma is a disease that varies over time. You know, a patient could be controlled one day, but then get a viral infection or have exposure to, air pollution, for example, and then lose control. And by empowering patients with monitoring technology at home that allows them to report their symptoms frequently, but also monitors the use of their inhalers as well as their inhaler technique, this is a really powerful tool if it's then integrated with NHS care services to give us a system-wide awareness of what's happening to patients with severe asthma within a given clinical service.
This specialist nurse highlighted some practical benefits for the NHS.
Using Nouveau Air is really, really helpful because you can remotely review your patients, which then in turn frees up clinic capacity and to enable you to get more patients through into the system. And then with that freeing up of space, you can see more sicker patients if you need to.
Each year in the UK, asthma accounts for 121,000 visits to A&E, 78,000 hospital admissions and more than 1,000 deaths. While most sufferers receive emergency therapy, around 80% aren't going on to be referred to the correct specialist, who can then provide the appropriate treatment.
Nouveau Air's Director of Clinical Operations believes its asthma service will radically improve these statistics.
I think uncontrolled asthma and managing people with uncontrolled asthma will remain a challenge for the NHS. There has been new guidance that's been published this year, which is designed to help identify and optimise the treatments of people with uncontrolled asthma. And I believe that in partnership with clinical services, that we will be able to accelerate patients through this pathway, support clinical teams to make faster decisions about diagnosis and treatment, and ultimately get the right therapy to the right patient at the right time.
For Macbeth, there's no question Nouveau Air has been life-changing.
Things like coming here to the woods. Before it took me an hour and a half to walk around this, sitting on every seat that was available, and now I can just sort of walk and meander around here, and it's a lovely place to come with the dogs. Between the monitoring and the help and encouragement through Nouveau Air and then the injections I get now, life has become a lot easier for me.
With its unique combination of connected technology and respiratory physiologists, Nouveau Air hopes its asthma service can engage and empower many more patients like Macbeth to take control of their symptoms and live a better life.
Come on, let's go.
Breathless patients suffering from severe COPD should not have obstacles in receiving treatment when they need it the most. Pulmonx endobronchial valve system for severe emphysema is available to patients around the country, allowing them to improve their quality of life. We went to the Royal Brompton Hospital in London to find out more.
Put this on your finger for me, please.
Former teacher and university lecturer Deborah Sanders lives with severe emphysema, and it's had a huge impact on her quality of life.
I end up breathing on a very top superficial level, so I'm just... And I can't... It wants to catch up with me and take me over and make me breathe in more and more and more, but it's not actually doing anything. So sometimes I'm terrified because you take your breathing for granted and then suddenly you don't anymore. I mean, we all breathe, don't we? And then I'm not. It's become an issue and my whole being is focused in on it.
But today, Deborah is undergoing a minimally invasive endobronchial lung volume reduction procedure, which it's hoped will greatly improve her symptoms. Pulmonx manufactured Zephyr valves will be inserted into the targeted airways. The technology prevents air from being trapped in the more diseased parts of the lung, which reduces hyperinflation and allows the healthier part of the lung to function better.
And we're job done.
And the procedure takes around 60 minutes to complete.
So providing we choose the right patient and perform the procedure correctly, it literally transforms their life. We see patients who cannot do simple tasks of living, they're short of breath after washing, dressing, cooking, they can't walk to the shops to get their pint of milk or the newspaper. And we've had patients where after treatment, it gives them their independence back and allows them to function a lot better.
In the UK, there are 1.2 million people with a diagnosis of COPD. That includes long-term bronchitis and emphysema. But according to experts, that's about a 50% underestimate because of problems with timely and inappropriate diagnosis. And around 4.5% of all people aged over 40 live with diagnosed COPD. More than 20 specialist treatment centres, including here at the Royal Brompton Hospital in London, carry out the procedure, and NHS clinicians across the country are encouraged to identify suitable patients and ensure they have access to it.
If they have completed the primary rehab and they are on optimised medical management for COPD, but still have persistent breathlessness, then I would basically try to see whether they're eligible for lung volume reduction procedure or not. There's a lot of data that has been shared with us during British Thoracic Society conferences that show it has improved a lot of breathlessness and quality of life in these patients, which is encouraging and make you more confident to refer patients for this treatment.
So I go for a walk every day. Yeah.
Patients like Paul, who had the procedure 3 months ago, he was reluctant to leave his home before his treatment, but now feels his world has opened up.
For the 6 months before the procedure, I was on oxygen cylinders 24/7, so my flat was all full of oxygen equipment and tubes, and I felt like some kind of science fiction character. So what it's allowing me to do is go out, to walk, to talk, to breathe, to inhale the fresh air, to feel alive, to feel part of the universe, rather than sort of being all kind of timid and frightened in my little flat. Life is completely different.
There is no cure for emphysema, but the Zephyr valve can help patients breathe easier, do more, and enjoy life.
Continuous positive airway pressure machines, also known as CPAPs, are crucial for the health of many suffering with sleep apnea. But access to them in the UK has been limited because of manufacturing supply chain shortages, COVID and other products being removed from the market. CFAM Medical are working to meet this demand with their technology-driven CPAP products and software, allowing patients access to life-enhancing therapy while also reducing the workload burden of healthcare staff.
Unlike some medical conditions, this one strikes at night.
Sleep apnea is when the airway narrows or closes during sleep, stopping breathing up to hundreds of times per night. Left untreated, it can lead to other serious health problems like stroke and heart disease. But it is treatable with a continuous positive airway pressure machine, or CPAP, which pumps air into the airway, keeping it open throughout the night.
We see people that stop breathing 70 times an hour. And we can drop them down to 6 times an hour on CPAP. That difference allows the patient to benefit from getting good, deep recuperative sleep and good dreaming sleep, and hence they are able to wake up in the morning and become a functional human being.
But since the coronavirus pandemic, these crucial devices have been in short supply, adding pressure to NHS respiratory staff already stretched to the limit.
I wouldn't say there was a panic, but there was definitely an urgency.
Mike McEwen is the managing director of CFAM Medical, a longtime French manufacturer of CPAPs, now supplying thousands to the UK.
What became very clear very quickly was that there was high-level interest in ensuring that a source of devices was found. We started really delivering maybe in the December of 2021 in the quantities that would allow the NHS to start allocating product to those hospitals which had the biggest problems.
Ian Wheatley's clinic was one of the first to begin using CFAM's CPAP machine called the S-Box. It's designed to streamline treatment with integrated digital monitoring and a secure cloud system that gathers and stores patient data without an in-person visit.
Now with a cloud-based system, the patient doesn't have to be sat in front of you. You could be on a video or a telephone or wherever, but you can review the data online, you can titrate therapy if you need to, you can discuss that with the patient, you can set a time for when you want to review them again.
And CFAM's smartphone app displays important feedback and diagnostics, allowing patients to better manage their own care.
We are then able to help the patient almost in real time, and we can increasingly do that remotely via video conference or by teleconference, say dragging the patient into a hospital outpatients department. If we can do things remotely, it's better for us. It's also far better for the patient.
It isn't just about effectively treating sleep apnea, it's also important to diagnose it. In fact, according to one estimate, up to 90% of potential patients don't even know they have it. That's why CFAM also distributes the Sunrise device, which tracks sleep movements to diagnose sleep apnea in just one night, saving time and resources.
The idea is that if you can take away your staff from doing diagnostic studies and do those studies more efficiently, then you've got more staff time available to treat patients, whether they're new patients or supporting your ongoing patients.
Sleep apnea affects nearly 5% of the population, and as more patients are diagnosed, clinicians will be looking for ways to manage with limited resources.
This problem is not going away, it is actually getting worse. So it's bringing in the new patients, managing the old patients, within a resource-limited service.
A health service, CFAM Medical, is serving one CPAP at a time.
The team have been in and provided us with training to support us in the areas that we need to learn, and they've been very responsive. Customer service-wise has been spot on.
I think stepping in and helping the system keep running at a time when it's very stressed, I think to myself, actually, that's a pretty good place to be.
Each winter, respiratory viruses take an enormous toll on people's health. Synergen is developing the first of its kind broad-spectrum host-directed antiviral, which can be inhaled directly into the lungs. It works by boosting the lungs' natural immune response, better enabling them to fight off severe lower lung infections. Here's more from the team in Southampton.
Synergen's trials of this potential treatment for severe viral lung infections have so far shown encouraging results. There are currently no broad-spectrum antivirals available to doctors to treat those hospitalised with severe viral lung infections, and these can be lethal, so there's an urgent need for treatment options. Ex vivo models, samples taken from actual patients, enabled researchers to test various lung conditions like viral infection, asthma and emphysema. They knew that many lives could depend on the outcomes.
So when we took those samples from volunteer patients, we found that when you put them into culture conditions and exposed them to a virus, that there was simply not enough interferon beta being produced in response to this infection. And so it made sense, therefore, to replenish that and to correct the deficiency. And that is how we started to demonstrate first the safety of interferon beta and proof of concept.
The team quickly concluded that the best way to deliver interferon beta was directly to the inner surface of the lungs via inhalation.
Inhaled interferon beta is a potential therapeutic for this wide range of respiratory viral infections. And it's in a development process which we've been working with the University of Southampton and with the company Synergen that are developing the drug, and really to see where that can have the greatest impact. So we're looking in patients with COPD, which is a chronic lung condition, which means that patients are very vulnerable to respiratory viral infections, and seeing if it can be used as a treatment in that space. We're looking at patients with COVID-19 who have completed recent studies to explore the potential for treating COVID-19. And really, as a potential broad spectrum treatment, it could address a number of the issues that we've been talking about, that where different viruses have a slightly different role to play in different individuals. Having a single drug which could treat all of those would clearly be a major step forward.
Never was this huge unmet need greater than during COVID, but the pandemic provided an unexpected opportunity.
We were in a position where we could trial our drug in hospitalised patients, and it was extremely helpful to us as developers of a drug that could be used to treat emerging viruses like SARS-CoV-2. And we've generated a lot of data very rapidly, and it's important that we take this data forwards as we direct the drug not just towards SARS-CoV-2, but the cold viruses and influenza viruses that can put people in hospital each winter. So it's our job as drug developers to get this drug towards market. And what we want to do now is to take everything we learned before COVID, everything we've learned in COVID, and design trials to progress this drug as a broad spectrum antiviral.
We have studied the role of interferon in the test tube in culture, and how relevant it is, how important it is to fight viruses. And what is interesting about interferon beta that it's not specific for a single type of virus. So it's not a drug that targets one virus and one virus only, and therefore there's potential for this to be used in the treatment of many virus-induced lung infections.
Thank you for watching Lungs Matter. We hope you enjoyed this programme. To view the full programme, visit the Respiratory Futures website. The details are on the screen now. From me and from the team here at ITN Business, goodbye.